Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Well, in my very first week as the Vice President of Education, I'm very excited that we have a club member who will complete her 10th project in the Competent Communicator Manual and become eligible for the Competent Communicator Award. And since I've only done 3 of the projects, and I'm glad you're giving me inspiration to work harder in the new Toastmasters epic that starts this week. Anna's speech today is called The Bucket List Reversed. And the purpose of the speech, as the 10th Competent Communicator Project, is to inspire the audience and encourage us all to change the status quo. So Anna's going to be taking a traditional idea of creating a bucket list, something we're all familiar with, I think, and turn that idea on its head and invite us all to look at our own lives and our opportunities in new ways. Anna's goals are to effectively communicate her own life experiences and how those have led her to look at this aspect, the bucket list idea of life, in a different way. And she's also going to be tying it in to some parts of some of the other very good speeches that she's given throughout the past year and getting to this point throughout the Competent Communicator process. So, with the bucket list reversed, I'd like to welcome up Anna Munie, Competent Communicator Project.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters. As Doug mentioned, I'm here today to basically come full circle. For those of you that were present when I gave my Competent Communicator 1 speech, you may remember that the topic of that speech was, I'll try anything. And as my introductory Competent Communicator 1 speech, I talked about how in my life from childhood to now, I have tried a lot of different things in a lot of different ways and had a lot of different experiences. Today, my way of coming full circle is to talk to you about my motivation for that I'll try anything attitude. Now again, as Doug mentioned, most of you are probably familiar with the concept of a bucket list. At a certain point in our lives, maybe it's retirement, when we reach a certain age, when we get to a certain point, we think in our lives, we create a bucket list. What are those things that I haven't yet experienced, but that I've always wanted to try? Good concept, definitely. Movies have been made around it. But what I want to talk about today is what if we look at that concept a little bit differently? In fact, a lot differently. What if we reverse that concept completely? What I want everyone to think about today is reversing your bucket list. Instead of getting to a certain point in your life and looking at the experiences that you have never done but would like to, instead, what if we approach every possible experience that we come into contact with and look at it as a question? Would I want this on my bucket list? So don't get to a certain point and then decide what you haven't done. Look at everything you could do and ask that question up front. Would I want this on my bucket list? These are big things. These are little things. These are epic things. But we can look at it in all the same way. So this makes a lot more sense if I give you a couple of examples, specifically related around my motivation and how I have come to live my life this way. Again, in my Competent Communicator 1 speech, I mentioned that when I was in ski school is when I first learned or earned the nickname, I'll try anything. And that came because no matter what they offered, I was the first one to say, I'll do that. And to be honest, that means that I have actually skied off a cliff. Yeah. I did not, however, ski off a cliff into an epic geological formation, but I have skied off a cliff. Now think about that. That seems like a bad thing. But if I get to a certain point in my life, isn't skied off a cliff kind of a cool thing to put on a bucket list? I had that I'll try anything attitude. I looked at that experience as, is this experience something I may want on my bucket list? And it was, so I tried it. Again, another kind of little example. Competent Communicator 1 speech. I had a teaser that I've now come full circle on in terms of the fact that I hadn't even talked about my experience of being kissed by a giraffe. Because I have been kissed by a giraffe. We were on a tour a couple of years ago and had the opportunity to feed some of the safari animals. So feed the giraffe a carrot, really cute, everybody's all for it. All of a sudden, the trainer mentioned, would anyone like this giraffe to take a carrot from your mouth? Everybody backed up. But I looked at that experience as, would I want this on my bucket list? Now let's be honest, if we actually made a bucket list, no one would probably think to put kissed by a giraffe. But again, look at your experiences. Look at whether or not you maybe want to put that on a bucket list someday. I can say I have been kissed by a giraffe, and I didn't need a bucket list to do it. And to be honest, that is actually one of my favorite pictures to this day because it was captured perfectly by one of my friends. Can't see the carrot at all, and it actually looks like I'm kissing a giraffe. Whether or not people think that a good thing or a bad thing, I'll leave that part to personal experience in your bucket list. But it's big things too. I've talked in speeches about the fact that I've been skydiving. I've talked in speeches about the fact that I got to play collegiate polo for Michigan State for 4 years, and that I was one of the founding members of that team, which still exists today. Last week, and I'll probably mention this in every speech that I ever give from this point forward, I have golfed Pebble Beach Golf Course out in California. All of those things I approached because I look at every possible experience as to whether or not I want that on my bucket list. Rephrased a slightly different way. All right, so when you get to that point where you make your bucket list, what can you already cross off? Because of the fact that I look at every opportunity as whether or not this is something I would like on a bucket list, I'll be honest, I'm very proud of the fact that there's a lot of experiences I can cross off before I even get to the bucket list point. So my advice to you is for any experience that you have, any potential experience you could have, whether it's small or large, whether it's epic or minor, these experiences come at us every day. Look at these things differently. Look at them as the fact of whether or not you would want that on a bucket list for your life moving forward. Thank you, everybody.
Wow.